Imagine a world where magical creatures, incredible sorcerers, and sword-wielding heroes live side by side. A world where the amazing energy called magic can allow you to do many things once thought impossible. In this place, called the Heroes' Continent, all those are a reality. However, all is not peaceful in this land. From the demon race rose an all-powerful demon queen that wages war with every other race on the continent. Using her overwhelming strength, she was able to crush every empire that stood in her way. Quickly, various races fell under her control until all that was left was the human race. Although they remained steadfast in their resistance against the demon queen's rule, they were weakened by the constant internal strife and rebellions that eventually led to the human empire's collapse. With the human race gone, nothing else is standing in the way between Elizabeth the Demon Queen and complete dominance over the Heroes' Continent. In the human empire, we are greeted by the sight of a priest struggling to stand as he faces off against a human figure respectfully standing next to the throne that Elizabeth took for herself. The priest's guards have long fallen under the Demon Queen's attacks. The priest looks at Elizabeth in rage, clearly staying defiant. He loudly claims that although her armies have defeated the human empire, she still hasn't won. According to legend, a hero will rise from the humans and defeat her in battle. Hearing this, the Demon Queen's servant kicks the priest across the face. The man looks at him smugly, intimately calling him Teacher Barrow. Turns out the servant was the ex-prince of the human empire, Prince Malfoy, who betrayed his kingdom by murdering his father and allying himself with the demons. Barrow feels betrayed after seeing the person he worked so hard to cultivate into a hero of the human race become a servant for the other side, and berates him. Hearing more of his yapping further annoys Prince Malfoy, so he decides to silence him once and for all. Reaching out his hand, it transforms into a large and hideous gooey claw, ready to take the priest's life. But just before the claw could touch him, the Demon Queen, who was watching the whole ordeal go down, orders Prince Malfoy to stay his hand. Prince Malfoy quickly stops and kneels as Elizabeth approaches the priest. With a domineering aura, Elizabeth then orders the priest to properly explain the prophecy, or else she will make him suffer 1,000 fates worse than death. With a shaken voice, the priest explains that there is a sword embedded in stone in the main hall. It is prophesied that a hero will one day pull it out and use it to end the Demon Queen's reign. Elizabeth's eyes are instantly drawn to the said sword. Gently, she rubs the sword's hilt before turning around and saying how she is looking forward to finding someone that can challenge her. She will not shrink away but instead face him head-on. So for the first year of her reign, her entire army guards the main hall, awaiting to fight the prophecy hero. Then came the second year when Prince Malfoy left the defenses to the army, then the third year when more of the army has left, then the fourth, then the fifth. As the years went by, fewer and fewer people guarded the main hall until it became abandoned. Still, no sign of the hero was ever seen or even heard. Meanwhile, the daily lives of the people continued as normal, and soon enough 15 years of Elizabeth's reign came to pass. Under the rule of the Demon Queen Elizabeth, past practices that bred inequality and distrust among the different species were all abolished, and the kingdom started to flourish and thrive under the new peace her reign has brought. The Demon Queen turns out to be an amazing ruler, so much so that the people started to fear that the prophecy hero's coming would end their era of peace. Thus, the Anti-Hero Alliance was born, an organization that rejects the arrival of the prophecy hero. We then cut to the main hall of what was initially the castle of the human empire turned into the main capital of the demon empire. Resting her head on her hand, Elizabeth asks her subordinate for any news regarding the arrival of the prophecy hero. The first to speak is the Chancellor of the Elves, Twilia, who reports that her people utilize the tree insects to gather information on the prophecy hero, but are unable to find anything on the matter. The Chancellor of the Dwarves says something similar, saying that none of his people have found any information either. The human Chancellor, Aristotle, voices out that even if the hero were to appear, he would not be powerful enough to stand against them all. However, his fellow chancellors hurriedly explained to him that it wasn't that the Demon Queen was afraid of the hero, on the contrary, she wants him to come so that she can end the prophecy herself. Twilia grumbles that it is all Priest Barrow's fault for even mentioning the prophecy. If it weren't for him mentioning it, then this prophecy wouldn't bother them in the first place. As if he was summoned by his name, a familiar presence enters the main hall chanting the slogan of the Anti-Hero Alliance. It's Barrow, the ex-high priest of the human empire and now the president of both the Demon Queen fan club and the Anti-Hero Alliance. Annoyed by his antics, Queen Elizabeth sends a magical hand that grabs hold of Barrow and pulls him near. She then demands him to explain why the prophecy hero hasn't arrived yet. Shaking in fear, Barrow weakly explains that it might be because she's so powerful that the prophecy targeting her becomes untrue. Prince Malfoy chimes in, agreeing with Barrow's words. He believes that she should not be troubled by the prophecy and should instead focus on other manners. But before he could even finish his words, a demonic tail smacks him across the face, ceasing his yapping. Without turning back, the Demon Queen orders him to get lost. Frustrated, she throws Barrow like a dart, impaling him to the wall. She laments on how she has reached the peak of the world, waiting for the hero to come and challenge her right to rule. Yet no matter how long she waits and how much stronger she becomes, no hero is coming to challenge her. Staring at the sword stuck in the middle of the hall, she comes to a decision. Her subordinates guess her thoughts straight away and plead with her not to follow through. However, the Demon Queen has made up her mind. She puts her hand on the sword and tries to rip it out of the stone, sending waves of power, debris, and ex-high priests flying through the air. Quickly, the Demon Chancellor shields the rest from the blast. As the dust settles, we see the Demon Queen triumphantly holding the hero's sword in one hand. With the sword free, it connects itself to the hero. Using the connection, the Demon Queen quickly learns of where the hero is hiding. A smirk plasters itself on her face, and she prepares to teleport to the location. Seeing this, Malfoy desperately begs her to allow him to stay by her side. However, his cries remain unheard as she teleports away. Meanwhile, in the house that the Demon Queen saw, we see our legendary hero maintaining his crops. Not too long ago, Le Ping was just an ordinary office worker whose only hobby was to watch farming and cooking videos on his phone. He always envies the simple life shown in the short videos he watches and wishes to live just like them. And just like that, his wish came true. He was suddenly transported into this strange other world with a newbie system to help him. With the newbie system's guidance, he was taught the basic survival skills and soon enough is living the quiet, pastoral life he always wanted. After living this way for a while, his newbie system eventually tells him that he has met the conditions to leave the newbie village and venture out on his own. The problem is that Le Ping is not interested in going. So what if his mission was to murder the Demon Queen? Le Ping doesn't want to murder anybody. Despite numerous messages and annoying notifications, Le Ping continues to ignore them all and live his quiet pastoral life. Thanks to the special time barrier set in the newbie village, not only is he kept hidden, but the perception of time in the village is different too, so he can continue to do what he wants. Time flies by as he continues to spend his day forging, farming, hunting, and meditating, not at all interested in learning about swords and magic. One day, the system has had enough of its lazy master and starts cursing Le Ping so badly that it crashes and disappears. However, Le Ping is completely unbothered and continues with his monotonous yet fulfilling life. After some farming, he decides to chop some more firewood before realizing that he forgot his axe back in the forest. Before he could go back and grab it though, a dark vortex of clouds gathered on top of his home with ominous red lightning crackling in its center. Within that dark vortex materializes the Demon Queen Elizabeth. She has finally found out where the hero is. But Le Ping, however, does not notice the queen at all. Instead, he runs towards the back of his house with one thing on his mind. It's gonna rain, my laundry and dried fish are in danger. Thankfully, his laundry and dried fish remain safe. Le Ping breathes a sigh of relief. Suddenly, a small robotic robot enters the scene and starts barking noisily to catch his attention. It is Wang Kai, Le Ping's AI dog companion. Le Ping tries to hush the dog and tells him to go inside, but before he does, he hears someone call for his attention. That's when he notices that something, or rather someone, is floating in the sky. Elizabeth looks down at Le Ping and lobs the hero's sword at him. Surprised, Le Ping hurriedly drops all his fish and laundry and covers himself in self-defense. However, the expected impact never came. Instead, the sword does a calm spin around his body and sets itself gently on his palm. Feeling the new weight on his hands, Le Ping swings the sword before panic sets in as he still has no clue what's going on. Elizabeth, on the other hand, has seen enough. The man in front of him is the prophecy hero. Gathering her magic, she starts preparing the spells she prepared just to deal with the hero. Meanwhile, Le Ping is panicking. He didn't even leave the newbie village. Why is the Demon Queen here? Wan Kai, on the other hand, starts to growl and bark at the new intruder. Le Ping berates him for this, telling him to stop provoking her. But it's too late. Elizabeth's abyss magic has fully formed, ready to strike at him. Le Ping then remembers what the system said before crashing, how his meeting with the Demon Lord is inevitable, and finally understands what he means. With the Demon Queen now in front of him, Le Ping's will to live flutters away. He throws away the sword and gives up, going towards his house to await his final moments. However, in the Demon Queen's eyes, this action seems more like a challenge rather than a man accepting his fate. This enrages the proud Demon Queen as she unleashes her magic on the small house. But before the magic reaches Le Ping's home, Wang Kai stands guard in front with a determined expression on his robotic screen. Several calculations happen in its mind before pulling out an entire arsenal of weapons that fire and nullify Elizabeth's magic. As expected, Elizabeth thought as she sees Wang Kai growl at her. The hero would not go down without a proper fight. Not giving up though, she casts another powerful spell, her apocalyptic magic. With full confidence she has Wang Kai's beat, she casts the powerful spell toward the little house. However, our little robot friend isn't done yet. Calculating some more, he fires back with his own attack. At first, Elizabeth scoffs at the attack and simply dodges it. But that's when she realized that he was never aiming for there in the first place. The beam collides with her apocalyptic magic and creates a massive explosion that nullifies her spell once again. Elizabeth is shocked. She wonders what exactly the hero did inside his house. Meanwhile, Le Ping, the guy in question, can be seen lying in bed accepting his fate. With the current situation, Elizabeth decides to float down and properly face off against this surprisingly powerful robot dog. As she gets closer, Wang Kai's eyes turn red and he starts to bark at her aggressively. Elizabeth smirks as she realizes that she has underestimated her opponent. But she isn't done yet. In reality, she only used 30% of her power. Magic flowed throughout her body as she started to transform, becoming more powerful in the process. In her new form, she charges toward Wang Kai, who stands at the ready with his arsenal of weapons. Their battle rages on for an hour, and this whole time Le Ping ends up falling asleep. When he awoke, at first he thought he already died from the Demon Queen's attack. Instead, he's surprised to see that he's still inside his house and completely fine. He then approaches the front door cautiously. Although it seems quiet on the outside, there is still a chance that the Demon Queen is waiting for him outside. Mustering his courage, he eventually opens the door. On the outside, a large cloud of dust slowly settles and Le Ping sees Elizabeth holding the broken and defeated body of Wang Kai in her hands. Although badly defeated, she musters the strength to face him and taunt him with his destroyed dog. Le Ping, however, assures her that it's okay and tries to talk it out with his crazy intruder. Elizabeth agrees to talk, right after she kills him. But it seems like she used too much energy fighting Wang Kai. She barely moved a few steps before collapsing. The surprised Le Ping rushed to her side to support her. But without her power, her transformation is starting to undo, revealing her seductive body to the unprepared Le Ping. Streams of blood spray from Le Ping's nose. This situation is just too erotic. Later that night, a now clothed Elizabeth comes to on a bed with handcuffs around her arms. She's surprised to find that the hero actually kept her alive. Was it so that he could brag to the world that he defeated her? She tries to break apart the handcuffs, but to no avail. This only worsens her misunderstanding of Le Ping as she thinks that he is hiding more of his power. Looking around the room, she spots more of his trinkets and mistakes them for powerful artifacts. Elizabeth berates herself for underestimating such an opponent. Just then, Le Ping enters the room with food in his hands. Seeing him, Elizabeth proudly declares that she would not beg for mercy if he wanted to kill her. But Le Ping doesn't have these sorts of intentions. On the contrary, he believes that the only way he can survive is if he calms the Demon Queen down and talks to her. He tells her that the handcuffs are simply a precaution because of how terrifying and formidable Elizabeth is. In a friendly manner, he offers to unlock the handcuffs so that they can talk properly. However, Elizabeth once again misunderstands his intentions. She thinks she is being let go only because the hero still has some demands. Eventually though, Le Ping unlocks the handcuffs. Seeing that she is not in a good position right now, Elizabeth begrudgingly agrees to not attack for now and listen to the hero. With that, Le Ping turns around to let her rest. Then he breaks the fourth wall to explain to the readers the reason he didn't try to kill her in her sleep. In a world of swords and magic, it is definitely normal that the Demon Queen has some sort of resurrection skill. But killing her is not the only way to resolve his issues. He plans to use the power of friendship to calm the Demon Queen and make her his ally. That way he gets to live and have a powerful friend by his side. He laughs at his own marvelous plan, which makes Elizabeth misunderstand that he is still mocking him. Then Le Ping turns his attention to the broken body of Wang Kai. Elizabeth asks him what Wang Kai is, and Le Ping replies that he is a new companion he made recently out of boredom. Hearing this, Elizabeth sees an opportunity. With the handcuffs gone, she can use her abyss magic to quickly recover. Now is the time to strike. To let his guard down, Elizabeth apologizes for breaking his magical tool while preparing her attack. Unaware of the situation, Le Ping replies that it's okay since the memory card is still intact. As Elizabeth towers over him, ready to strike, Le Ping opens a cabinet to reveal several Wan Kai copies. He simply pops the memory card back in and Wan Kai is back, good as new. Elizabeth freezes in shock. Her plan has been foiled. Looks like she won't be able to attack him anytime soon. But before she can think of what to do next, the scent of food catches her attention. Le Ping notices and explains that he made some meat porridge and dumplings for her while she was out cold. At first, Elizabeth refuses. She has reached a level where she does not need to eat anymore. However, the delicious smell of the food made her tummy rumble. Seeing the opportunity to resolve conflicts with delicious food, Le Ping proudly explains that he made it all using vegetables and grains that he grew himself. Elizabeth hesitates before taking one of the dumplings and eating it. Le Ping watches on nervously. Even though he is confident in his cooking skills, with her status as the Demon Queen, he isn't sure if she would be satisfied with such a simple dish. She takes a moment to chew, then takes another, then one more until she cleans out the whole plate. She exclaims in ecstasy that the meat is super tender and delicious and contains a lot of magical energy as well. Elizabeth didn't even know that a delicacy like this existed in this world. All of a sudden, she experiences a surge of heat emanating from the meal. She gasps due to the dish's fiery nature and voices her displeasure about the spice, insisting on knowing the ingredients he used in the food. Seeing this, Le Ping panics. Can she not handle spicy food? He quickly explains that he added some spicy chili according to his usual taste. As expected, Elizabeth thought. Le Ping had no good intentions at all. He only kept her alive to use her in his experiments. To combat the hot spice, Le Ping hurriedly serves her some lean pork congee and century egg. Once again, Elizabeth misunderstands and thinks that he is toying with her by providing her with the poison and the antidote right after. As soon as she gets a taste though, it's as if she was transported to a whole nother world. A peaceful feeling envelops Elizabeth and suddenly the feeling of world domination and the fight between the hero and the Demon Queen are simply disturbances that no longer bother her. As the feeling washes over her, she suddenly levels up in power. She cannot believe it. By simply eating food, she has reached the next level. This finally makes her want to get straight to the point as she asks Le Ping what exactly he wants from her. Le Ping replies that he simply just wants to research how a Demon Queen and a hero can coexist together. But in her ears, it's as if he is saying that she is the only one qualified to be the subject of his research experiments. He challenges her to become stronger so that she can finally beat him. He then offers to cook more food for her if she accepts. But her delusions run deep. What she hears instead is that he will help her become stronger to defeat him by using his so-called naturally made food. At first, this angers her. This sort of humiliation is too much. But after thinking it through, she sighs and caves in. Standing on top of the bed, she declares that she will follow his demands, but not because she is scared. Instead, she is pursuing the pinnacle of strength with the hope that one day she will be able to defeat him. Furthermore, her dignity as the Demon Queen must not be trampled or else she will sacrifice everything to end him. Scared out of his wits, Le Ping quickly agrees to her demands, and with that, the story of how the Demon Queen and the hero started living together begins. The scene then transitions to a year later. Le Ping can be seen chopping wood with the hero's sword. As he chopped, he thought about what happened during the time that Elizabeth had been living with him. Ever since she broke into the newbie village, time has gradually started to synchronize with the outside world. Now, time synchronization is not the real issue, but without the time barrier's protection, the newbie village is now completely exposed. Thankfully, Elizabeth's pretense deters any of the strange wildlife outside the newbie village from attacking his house. Suddenly, a voice calls out to Le Ping from inside the house, complaining that it is lunchtime already. Le Ping replies that he is coming and enters the house. Inside, we are greeted by the sight of a now fat Elizabeth watching TV while eating some potato chips. She says that she is watching his recordings and nags at him to get something new from his system. Used to her nagging at this point, Le Ping replies that the system he had is long gone already. He then calls her over for lunch. With a wave of her hands, 2 tiny demon wings appear and she slowly floats over to the dinner table. Curious, she asks him what kind of poison he is feeding her that is making her feel lazier the more she eats. Le Ping sighs and explains that the potato chips she is eating are high in calories, so she should not eat too much of them or else she will become fat. As if she just noticed, she takes a look at her now bulging stomach and realizes that what Le Ping says is true. It's not a problem for the Demon Queen though. With a snap of her fingers, she uses her negative attribute conversion magic to turn all of her fat into pure magic and regain her slim figure. Le Ping simply looked in surprise. He didn't think that magic could be used like this too. Seeing his surprised expression makes Elizabeth gloat, thinking she was able to foil his plan of trying to poison her. Le Ping simply allows her to believe what she wants and tells her that lunch is ready. The mounds of delicious food take Elizabeth's attention, and she starts to wolf down all the food. Le Ping sighs after seeing how fast Elizabeth is eating and tells her to slow down. He can just make more if it's not enough after all. Le Ping's words make Elizabeth falter. In her mind, what Le Ping is implying is that she's still too weak, fatten up more. Elizabeth grits her teeth in frustration. She has already leveled up more than 10 times in the 1 year they were living together. With her strength now, she's confident in winning. But before she can challenge Le Ping to a decisive battle, he takes out the dessert he prepared for her, her favorite pudding. Instantly, any thoughts about fighting Le Ping were thrown away to the back of her mind, and she instead demands him to give her the pudding. Fortunately, it is very easy to deal with the Demon Queen, Le Ping thought. As long as he has the right food, it's easy enough to calm her down. Meanwhile, in a place not too far from Newbie Village, we see an old man running away with a blonde-haired woman in tow. Chasing them both are several mysterious figures with masks and dark cloaks. One of them leaps towards the pair, and with its dark claws, it rips a spatial tear in front of it. Suddenly, more spatial tears appear surrounding the old man and girl. Then, the mysterious figure plunges its long claws into the tear, creating a nail cage that traps the two. There's no way out. The old man stands protectively in front of the blonde woman and tells her, his daughter, to run away to the town while he holds the masked men back. Tears form in the girl's eyes as she refuses to escape without her father. But the father remains adamant. He already promised her mother that he will keep her safe no matter what. As the cloaked figures surround the two, one of them raises their hands and casts a huge ball of ghost fire at them. This forces the old man to use his strongest move to cut both the ball of ghost fire and the cloaked figure in half. Seeing his ally fall, one of the cloaked figures quickly grabs both halves of the fallen member and somehow fuses itself with both halves, revealing itself as some kind of goo-like monstrosity. Determined not to leave her father, the girl uses her magic to create a bow and arrow and shoots it at the other masked man. However, the arrows seem to have no effect. Her father warns her that she cannot handle the Dark Guild's apostles yet, and that she should just flee instead. Just then, the third Dark Apostle dashed towards the old man and hit his sword with its large arms. The old man is thrown back several feet until he hits a large boulder. Seeing her father in such a critical condition, the girl desperately calls out to her father. Although severely injured, the man still warns his daughter to get away and escape to safety. Meanwhile, the third Dark Apostle approaches the combined apostle from earlier and combines with it as well. As all three combine, they transform into a gigantic goo-like golem that's ready to crush the father and daughter pair. The girl rushes to her father's side and tries to plead with the giant monstrosity to let her father go in exchange for coming with them. Unfortunately, it seems like her being alive was not a part of the job description. But before the apostles can destroy them, an even bigger monster straight up curb stomps them to the ground, turning them all into paste. As the dust settles, the girl looks up to see that their unlikely savior turns out to be a massive mammoth. And the mammoth isn't alone. On top of the mammoth's head lies a small house where a wise immortal frog resides. The immortal frog croaks before informing his big brother that the threat has been taken care of. He then asks what should be done with the two humans that they saved. This big brother of his turns out to be living on the top of his head as well. It's Wan Kai, Le Ping's robotic companion. Wan Kai replies that they should not harm the humans. Instead, he will take them back to his master so that he can deal with them. A little while later, we see the young woman waking up in an unfamiliar bed. She looks at her surroundings, unsure of where she is right now, until she remembers that her father has been severely injured by the apostles. Without treatment, he might actually die. She quickly rushes out of bed and opens the door to the outside, worried about her father. But her worries seem unfounded as she is greeted with the sight of her father flexing his large muscles. The blonde girl continues to spectate as Le Ping compliments her father's muscles. Le Ping is amazed at just how muscled the warriors from this other world are. However, someone else does not seem as interested. As Wan Kai runs around Le Ping, minding his own business, Elizabeth kicks him out of the blue and berates him for bringing back two unknown people to their home. Wan Kai simply whimpers. Now that she has leveled up 10 times, he is no longer a match for her. Despite the commotion, Le Ping continues to gush about how sturdy the old man's muscles feel. Feeling proud of all the compliments, the old man decides to show even more of his muscles. With a mighty roar, he activates his battle soul-burning technique, which makes his muscles swell even more, ripping his shirt apart until he is in nothing but his underwear. Le Ping gasps in astonishment as the old man continues to flaunt his muscles. However, his daughter, Evil's confused voice breaks him out of his ego trip. He quietly explains that he is just trying to please his savior. Nonetheless, he is still glad to see that his daughter has woken up. Now that Evil is awake, Le Ping tries to explain the current situation to her when Elizabeth suddenly teleports in front of Evil and tells her that she should leave. And with a small display of dominance, she warns Evil that she came first. Evil shakes in fear under the pressure given out by both Elizabeth's aura and her superior assets. Thankfully, Le Ping is able to convince Elizabeth to allow the guests to come inside and talk. Inside, Le Ping offers the father and daughter pair some barley tea and apologizes for not being able to serve them something else. Evil looks at the sparkly barley tea and asks her father if this is the magical potion that instantly healed his injuries. Le Ping scratches his head in embarrassment and denies her conjecture, saying that it's too exaggerated. All he did was let her father drink some cold well water. In contrast to Le Ping's warm reception, Elizabeth still looks at the two warily. She wonders what kind of experiments Le Ping wants them to undergo and is angry that somehow she isn't enough to satisfy his urge to experiment on people. Evil's father disagrees with Le Ping, however. Although he was barely conscious at the time, he still remembers how Wan Kai brought him to the newbie village and Le Ping healing him with cold well water full of magic energy. For that he is grateful. He wouldn't have been able to see his daughter again if it weren't for his help. Hearing her father's story, Evil wonders if she is even allowed to drink something that precious. But Le Ping reassures her that she does not need to be that polite. So with Le Ping's permission, both Evil and her father took a sip from the barley tea. As the liquid enters their body, a bright light suddenly shines from their mouths and eyes as the tea transports them to an endless field of barley. Just like the Demon Queen before, a sense of bliss overwhelms their bodies as they gaze at the beautiful sky. Undisturbed by the problems of the world, in addition to this sense of bliss, they both also leveled up, with the father turning into a 4-star archmage and Evil turning into a 1-star archmage. The two stare in surprise at suddenly growing more powerful. The barley tea even awakened Evil's dormant elf blood in her, making her ears longer like a true elf's. They both sigh in satisfaction, happy that they get to feel such bliss in addition to becoming more powerful. Seeing how happy they are after one cup, Le Ping offers to pour them more tea, but Evil's father denies it with teary eyes. He cannot believe that someone as gracious as Le Ping can exist. Accepting his kindness almost feels like torment to him. Although disappointed, Le Ping agrees to not give them any more. He could offer them more drinks and snacks, but the problem is that Elizabeth has taken them all already. He apologizes to the scared duo about the lack of variety in what he can serve. Then Le Ping digresses and asks Evil's father why they were both attacked in the first place. Evil's father explains that it was due to the elf's bloodline inside Evil. Evil further adds that her mother is the elf saintess who had her when she fell in love with her father. The only issue was that intermarriages between races were forbidden by the elf race. Hearing this, Elizabeth says that it's impossible as the ban was lifted long ago under the rule of the Demon Queen. But reality seems to differ, as Evil's mother was forced to return to the Holy Land of the Elves and Evil's father hid her away. Le Ping then asked if the Elves were after them after discovering their existence. Surprisingly though, the answer is no. Both were spared after Evil's mother decided to return to the Elf tribe. Instead, the ones chasing them right now are envoys of the Dark Guild from the Demon Realm. With this revelation, Le Ping casts a suspicious look at Elizabeth, which earns him some harsh words from the Demon Queen. Still though, this situation piques Elizabeth's interest as she asks the two where the Dark Guild from the Demon Realm came from and why they are capturing elves. Evil's father replies that it is rumored that the Dark Guild is conducting human experiments to revive the Demon Queen Elizabeth. Because elves are one of the main materials, the Dark Envoys have been hunting them down ever since. With Elizabeth's own name being thrown around, Le Ping can't help but cast another suspicious gaze at Elizabeth, who this time grabs him by the collar. Realizing his mistake, he quickly apologizes and says that she's been here the whole time, so there is no way that she had anything to do with it. Curious about what the two are arguing about, Evil asks her father, but he shuts her down and tells her not to be nosy. A man knows better than to butt in a couple's argument after all. But their story intrigues Elizabeth as well as she asks them who started the rumor that the Demon Queen died. It was then revealed that it turns out she has been missing for 500 years. Lip Ping didn't even know how it was possible. Elizabeth had only been living in his house for a year. Elizabeth then asks how she is rumored to have died. According to them, the Demon Queen died after having a battle with the legendary hero that lasted for a month. In the end, the hero sacrificed himself to protect the hero continent and he died with the Demon Queen. Hearing this, Elizabeth becomes angry. She sends out her intent towards the two. Instantly, the father and daughter pair feel as if they have been transported to a field of skulls. It feels as if any wrong move and the two would die. With a demanding tone, Elizabeth declares that the rumor is false. Both Evil and her father had no choice but to quickly agree with Elizabeth's words, lest they be murdered. But before they can calm down, Lip Ping chimes in and says that she is right because he is the legendary hero while the woman they are speaking to is the Demon Queen Elizabeth. This information seems to be too much for their brains to handle. Both nearly faint from the information overload that they have just received. However, seeing their reactions made Elizabeth think that Lip Ping purposely saved them just to humiliate her. It's as if he is saying that he captured the Demon Queen, look at her and laugh. This makes her smash the table in anger and stand up to leave. She curses at Lip Ping inwardly as she leaves the room and smashes the door behind her. With the Demon Queen gone, Evil's father is finally able to exhale the air he was holding in. He then shakily asks Lip Ping what his plans to deal with them are. Lip Ping, shaking himself, replies that he isn't sure. Time must have gone haywire when Elizabeth broke through the time barrier until it finally synchronized time 500 years later. Later that night, we see the pair lying down together. Evil turns to her father and exclaims how unbelievable it is that the truth behind the Demon Queen's disappearance is that she fell in love with the legendary hero and decided to hide away from the world, just like her father and mother. Evil's father tells her not to compare them to the two. He also says that Lip Ping told him to calm down because he was probably thinking about whether he should spare them or not. Surprised, Evil asks then why did he save them if Lip Ping was just going to murder them anyway. In reply, her father said that just like he casually allowed them to break through, it is also just as easy to murder them. To get rid of or to spare is all up to either the hero or the Demon Queen's mood. Suddenly, a loud thud is heard as an ominous voice asks them what they are doing still awake at night. Lip Ping starts chuckling to himself as he pulls out a deck of cards and offers to play card games with them. Evil's father just stares at him in confusion. A little while later, both father and daughter can be seen sitting down with serious faces as Lip Ping explains the rules of the game Landlord. Unlike Lip Ping, who is playing for fun, both Evil and her father believe that this is a test whether to get rid of them or not. Looking at the deck of cards that are emanating an ominous aura, Evil asks him what the name of the game was. This stumps Lip Ping as he isn't sure that they would get what a landlord was. So instead, he names it Dragon Fight. This shocks both father and daughter and even Elizabeth, who is watching nearby with some high-level concealment magic. Lip Ping explains that the two heroes have to work together to beat the dragon, and they decide who is the hero and the dragon according to the cards they draw. Sure enough, they thought, this game is a test for them on whether they should live or not. In their vision, Lip Ping looks very evil as he warns them to think carefully while they choose their cards. Lip Ping draws his cards first and he tells the other to hurry up as well. Evil draws her cards first, but as soon as she touches the cards, their surroundings suddenly change. Evil's father, who is now revealed to be named Bess, looks around in shock. They've been transported to another realm. After picking all of her cards, Evil almost collapses. Just drawing her cards almost drains all of her magical power. Soon all of them have their cards. Lip Ping asks them if either of them wants to be the dragon, and they both said no. Looking at his cards, Lip Ping realizes that if he gets another 4 and an ace, then he would have a winning hand. He asks them once again if they wanted to be the dragon before drawing his cards. As the cards are revealed, Lip Ping frowns as none of the cards were a 4 or an ace. However, both Evil and Bess misinterpret his frown as him being dissatisfied with their performance. Lip Ping then plays an 8 before getting the floor to Bess. As soon as he tries to play a card, a surge of magic exits his body and enters the card. Playing a card is actually at the cost of his life force. Without further delay, Bess then plays a jack. Evil looks at her father worried, but Bess reassures his daughter that he is okay. Then both Evil and Lip Ping passes. Since it's Bess's turn once again, he puts down a combination known as Flying Dragon. All of a sudden, more magic is sucked out of Bess's body as the cards he plays give off the illusion of Flying Dragon attacking Lip Ping. Both looks in shock. However, when the dust settles, Le Ping can be seen completely fine. Both Evil and Le Ping then passes, which gives the turn back to Bess. He then plays a 3, which Evil passes. Le Ping then plays a 10, and they both pass. That was the start of their unfortunate end. Le Ping suddenly plays a straight, shocking the father and daughter pair. This time, it summons a huge wave that nearly washes them both away. Then Le Ping plays a trio and pair, which summons 2 gladiators on a chariot to charge at them. Bess grits his teeth. He has nothing to beat them. However, Evil steps up to challenge Le Ping's cards. Bess tells her not to play as it uses her life force as the price, but Evil refuses. She can't just hide behind her father forever. She then plays another 3 of a kind with a pair that is larger than Le Ping's cards. When the dust settles, only Evil's chariot remains standing. Bess checks on Evil if she is okay, and she replies that she is fine. However, Le Ping isn't finished yet. Both the father and daughter pair and Elizabeth, quietly spectating in the corner, suddenly has an ominous feeling. With his treasure, Le Ping summons a pair of jokers and plays it. A large crack suddenly appears in the realm that they are currently inside. From the crack comes out a level 3 demon clown king that even shocks Elizabeth with its power. As its eyes wander around, it suddenly looks straight at Elizabeth, despite her hiding herself with magic. The demon asks her what she was staring at before summoning a knife and threatening to hurt her. Elizabeth grits her teeth at the obvious provocation, but cannot do anything as the Clown King is actually equal in power to her. Despite being nourished by Le Ping for a year, Le Ping just casually summons something just as powerful as her. Bess and Evil look on in despair. Despite their best efforts, they are powerless. Suddenly, Bess starts to cough blood as he realizes that his life force is being sucked away like crazy. Concerned, Le Ping asks if he is okay, thinking that his injury hasn't healed yet, but then takes a sneaky peek at his cards. Turns out Bess had a winning hand. Le Ping then misunderstands it as Uncle Bess letting him play with him. In his naivety, he thought he was actually good, when in reality Bess just allowed him to play and Le Ping is just disturbing his rest. He then reshuffles the deck, canceling the summon for the Clown King and arranging it back into his deck. He apologizes for disturbing their rest and then sulks away back to his room. The father and daughter pair remain shaken and confused, but glad to be still alive. Meanwhile, Elizabeth once again misunderstands his intentions. In reality, this card game was a way to show off his dominance to her. The next day, the 4 can be seen standing outside Le Ping's house as he bade them goodbye. Le Ping asks them if they really did not want to stay for a few days more, as the fruits he planted were almost ripe. In response, Bess bows and says he cannot bother them anymore and that he is grateful for their kindness. He also assures them that after they go out, they will tell nobody about what they just witnessed. Evil also thanks them for giving them some barley tea. Le Ping just scratches his head in embarrassment and says that it's alright. He then approaches Bess and gives him a memento, his playing cards. After playing with him, Le Ping realizes just how bad he is at card games and decides that the cards should stay with Bess. As Le Ping willows in despair, Elizabeth catches Bess's attention. She then mouths the words "hurry up and get out of here." Seeing that, the two instantly flee for their lives without even saying goodbye, which confuses Le Ping. Just what did he do to make them react like that? Elizabeth then turns around and orders him to make food for the queen, to which Le Ping begrudgingly accepts. Meanwhile, Bess continues to run away with his daughter and Tao. Eventually, his daughter begs them to stop, so he comes to a halt. Bess sighs. First it was the test of the legendary hero, then it was the threat of the Demon Queen. He flashbacks to just last night when the Demon Queen approached them and slashed them across their necks. Surprisingly though, it did not completely get rid of them. Instead, they found themselves with new magical collars made out of runes. Then the Demon Queen commanded the two to leave tomorrow, while never revealing the Demon Lord and legendary hero's presence in Newbie Village to the world. If not, the curse marks around their necks will make them lose their heads immediately. The two had no choice but to accept the Demon Queen's request. Once the flashback is over, they both look up to realize that they were back where they first started. Even the dead apostles' corpses were still there. Bess was surprised. He didn't think that he could run that far and that fast. In reality though, Wang Kai actually gave them a helping push so that they would not be able to bother Le Ping and Elizabeth anymore. Bess looks around carefully though. He is aware that there should be many high-level demons around, so they should leave as soon as possible. Suddenly, Wang Kai's ears perk up as he notices that something is quickly approaching this location. However, he decides to ignore it this time. If he doesn't want to get beat up by Elizabeth, then it's best to keep his robotic nose out of people's business. He then teleports himself back home just as several cloaked figures arrive in front of Bess and Evil. Alongside them, there is also one figure without a cloak that seems to be the leader of the group. Bess looks in horror. The Dark Apostle without a cloak is the Dark Guild's Great Apostle. Seeing that the gap in their levels are too big, Evil begs her father to allow her to just leave with them while he runs away. However, Bess is done with running. Comparing the level of the legendary hero and the Demon Queen, these Dark Guild Apostles are nothing. Taking out the deck of cards Le Ping gave him, he points them toward the Apostles, which instantly obliterates some weaker ones in the group. This surprises the Great Apostle. He did not expect such power to come from such a weak-looking old man. Bess admits that ever since her mother was taken back to the elf tribe, he has become timid and started escaping from their problems. However, now he realizes that it was wrong of him to do that. If they get through this difficult time, Bess promises his daughter that he will take her to the elf tribe and bring back her mother. Taking out a 4-of-a-kind out of the deck, Bess summons a mighty 4-bomb arrow god in the image of Evil's mother to fight for them. The arrow god makes a bow and arrow out of magic and releases a magical arrow aiming at all the Dark Apostles. Before they can react, 3 apostles in the arrow's path instantly die with only the Great Apostle remaining. At first, the Great Apostle sneers and confidently grabs at the arrow. However, the Great Apostle's hubris leads to its downfall, as even with both hands the arrow is able to easily pierce through and hurt it. Once all the apostles have died, the image of the arrow god dissipates and the cards return to the deck. Bess almost collapses from exhaustion afterward as Evil rushes to her father's side. Looking at the effects of the summoned cards on the environment, Bess decides right then and there to change his profession. And that's how a new profession, the Card Master, was born. A week later, as Le Ping said earlier, the fruits in his garden start to ripen and he can be seen enjoying some watermelon in his garden. He mentions that his fruit breeding method has been very successful, but without anyone to share it with, the joy of the harvest always feels like it is missing something. Le Ping then thinks back to all the amazing jobs he has seen so far in this magical world and realizes that he is a little interested in what the outside world has to offer. The only problem is that he is too weak, so he thinks that he should just forget about it. Suddenly, a cloud of dust appears as Elizabeth teleports herself next to him. Noticing his sad expression, she asks him what was wrong. Le Ping replies that he wanted to go see the outside world, but he is too weak to do so. Hearing this, Elizabeth decides to invite him out for a trip outside. Excitedly, Le Ping asks if it's true. It would be a different story if he had the protection of the Demon Queen after all. As Elizabeth finishes her drink, she tells him to change his clothes. Soon, the two of them are dressed in new and fashionable clothing that Le Ping has made. Elizabeth lets out a rare compliment, saying that both his cooking and sewing skills are really impressive. Le Ping replies that of course they are his specialties. Now that they are all dressed up, they are both ready to go out to the outside world. With a snap of her fingers, Elizabeth opens a transfer door to teleport to the nearest town. Le Ping marvels at the convenience of such a skill. But before Elizabeth walks in the transfer door, Le Ping stops her in her tracks to set some ground rules. 1. To not leave him alone. 2. To keep her emotions stable. And 3. To act more low-key with the people outside. Of course, Le Ping seemed more demanding and arrogant in Elizabeth's vision, so it pisses her off. But nonetheless, she understands and agrees to his requests. Finally, Le Ping asks if she will come back with him after seeing the changes of the outside world. After all, with the time barrier gone, he will become food for the demonic beasts if the Demon Queen isn't near. Elizabeth agrees, but for an entirely different reason. Before she officially defeats him, the outside world means nothing to her. However, the request comes with a condition. When they return, he has to go and make her a super deluxe assorted fruit pudding. Le Ping happily agrees and follows her through the transfer door, leaving Wan Cad to guard the house. After stepping through the transfer door, he is then greeted with the sight of Fantasy Town. The name of the town is Boaster Town, a neutral place where people of all races gather and live together. Le Ping's eyes shimmer as he looks around this new and strange world. He points out an equipment shop and a food stall to Elizabeth before roaming all around the place, looking at all the wondrous and foreign sights. Meanwhile, Elizabeth looks around and isn't as excited. Instead, she seems more surprised that the changes in the outside world do not seem so significant. Le Ping agrees, saying that it is not as chaotic as Uncle Bess said it would be. Elizabeth then proudly explains that it is all because of her. Before her rule, various forces were in conflict and the situation was very chaotic. Using her absolute strength, she suppressed all those forces and created a set of rules that made them all equal. So in reality, the one who saved the hero's continent was not the legendary hero but the demon queen. Unfortunately though, her bragging seems to fall on deaf ears as Li Ping has disappeared from his original position. Instead, he can be seen looking at a stall of a young girl selling teddy bears. It's as if Li Ping doesn't even put her accomplishment in his eyes. Li Ping takes a closer look at the dolls and compliments its stitching. He then asks the little girl if she was the one who made the doll. The little girl says yes in reply and offers to sell it to Li Ping at a lower price. But before they can finish their transaction, a gruff and demanding voice asks the girl who gave her permission to set up a stall in the area. The voice belonged to a pig-headed man who kicks away the tiny stall the girl made, sending all of her dolls flying. The pig-headed man grabs the little girl and berates her as her church has not paid them any protection money yet. The little kids who were with the girl shake in fear as they witness their big sister be interrogated for money. Defiantly, the little girl retorts that they never really protected them, so she shouldn't have to pay any protection money. The pig-headed man simply snorts and informs her that since last month this territory fell under the influence of the Beast Gang. If she wants to survive here, she will have to pay them protection money every month. Still defiant, the little girl says that what he says is not true as the church belongs to the nun, and that when the nun comes back they will all be sorry they did this. The pig-headed man simply shrugs off her threat and fires back by saying that he will drive away the orphans today and destroy the old church. Seeing this injustice, Li Ping bravely steps up and tells them to stop. But when his words turn the orc's attention to him, suddenly all of his confidence vanishes. He tries to signal help from Elizabeth, but she simply ignores him. Without his main source of power, Li Ping stands helpless as the pig-headed man barks at him again to state his intentions. He looks around at the large crowd gathers and suddenly has an idea. With a loud voice, he proclaims that a pig-headed man is bullying a little girl. They should condemn him. Unfortunately for our hero though, the surrounding crowd seems to just ignore him. This makes the pig-headed man laugh. Everyone knows their beast gang here. There is no way anybody would help him. His eyes then wander to Elizabeth as he licks his lips. He judges from their clothing that they are all foreigners from the south. Seeing that the situation is not to his favor, Li Ping tries to reason with the gang by offering some local specialties from his bag that he is willing to share. But the pig-headed man does not listen. Instead, he orders his gang members to beat him up and take the woman back to the gang and lock her up. This angers Elizabeth, who believes that there is no one qualified to imprison her, despite her being a self-proclaimed prisoner of Li Ping. Her anger instantly darkens the clouds as red lightning starts to crackle, forming the shape of an evil face. The unnatural sight makes the pig-faced man shake in fear, and he drops the little girl. Seeing that her anger might end up destroying the town, Li Ping quickly tries to calm her down. Grabbing a fan from his bag, he quickly fans Elizabeth while saying that all she needs to do is scare them. Fighting with ordinary people like them is not necessary. Elizabeth coldly harumphs before deciding that fine, she will spare them because of Li Ping's words. However, her display of magic does not escape the eyes of the little girl, who is amazed with the amount of magical power that Elizabeth has. With her anger held at bay, soon the clouds dissipated as if nothing happened at all. The pig-faced man looks around in confusion and fear at the sudden change of weather. He has no idea what just went on, but now all of a sudden he has a bad feeling when facing those two.